Welcome to the channel Trim It Color. We are on process of making this scene. In the previous videos you have seen how to model this hut and tree and stone and the base in Maya, and then how to sculpt the tree in ZBrush. In this session I am going to show you how to sculpt this hut in ZBrush. And in our later videos I am going to show you how to texture the entire scene in Substance Painter. If you have missed any of those tutorials, the links are given in the description. You can directly jump to any of those tutorials. So now let's get started with ZBrush. First of all, I am going to import all the base meshes I have created in Maya, and I am just dragging on the viewport and clicking on edit. So now this is editable and changing the material to matcap gray. In Maya, if you can remember, I extracted the entire house into 4 parts. So I have to import all those 4 parts. So going to the subtools, clicking on that star primitive and clicking on import and importing the next part. Alright, so this is my second object, and I'm going down and clicking on display properties and click on double so that the object will be seen double-sided. Alright. Going back to the first object, going to the subtool and clicking on append and selecting the second object. Now you can see in 2 layers I have got both the parts of the house. Now again selecting the second tool and clicking on import, and I am importing my third object. Again clicking on the first tool, append and selecting my third tool. Doing the same thing, importing the fourth object. Alright, going to the first tool, append and selecting my fourth tool. And you can see now in my 4 layers I have got all the 4 objects, and the entire house I have got inside one tool. So through append we can import multiple objects at one place. Now I am going to subdivide each tools individually. Before that, let's click on the perspective. Now selecting the wall and going to the geometry. Here I have clicked off all the other geometry except the walls. Now clicking on the subdivide up to 6 subdivision level. By Shift F you can toggle this wireframe. Now let's check. You can see I can sculpt on it. This is alright. 6 subdivision level is enough, I guess. Now going back to our subtool and selecting the next subdivision, selecting the next object and clicking off the rest. Again going to the geometry and clicking on subdivide, and maybe this time I will go up to 5th subdivision level. Let's check by sculpting, and you can see very smoothly I can sculpt, so this is alright. Going to the next tool. Similarly, going to the geometry, clicking on subdivide up to 5th subdivision in this case also. Now going to the last object, going to the geometry and click on subdivide. In this case also I am going to the 5th subdivision level. This is looking fine to me. Now going to the subtools and clicking on the first object, Shift F in the keyboard, and you can see the wireframe, and over here you can see different colors. Different colors means those are different groups. So this can help us in terms of the selection. Alright, so I am holding Ctrl Shift and clicking on the object, you can see now this is isolated. Now clicking on lightbox, go to brush and slash brush I am taking over here. Make sure you are changing the stroke to drag rectangle. Now holding Alt and dragging, and you can see how I can give the crack marks. Alright, I am also smoothing by holding Shift. Coming back to dots and again sculpt it. Intensity is too much, so I'll just reduce it a little bit. And like this, I will give marks throughout the surface. Alright. You can see randomly I am giving marks on the surface. I'm giving marks and then again holding Shift. I'm just smoothing it a little bit. It has to be very random. I'm just giving the marks here and there. So all the sides I have to create marks. Make it very irregular, then it will look natural. Going back to my standard brush and clicking on alpha and click on import, and I am importing some alphas randomly I have downloaded from Google. Selecting my alpha and once again switching back to drag rectangle. Now again holding Alt and dragging on the surface, and you can see I'm getting the alpha on the surface. And you can see this side also it is painted, so I don't want that. So going to brush and masking and click on backface mask. So dragging once again throughout the surface. So you can see now I'm getting the print of the alpha. Let's check the back, and now this side is also fine. Now I am smoothing the entire surface by using the smooth brush by holding Shift in the keyboard. Going close to the edges and selecting H polish brush. After going to the brush, you just press H, you will get H polish. And now I'll sculpt on the edges. You can see I'm creating small planes throughout the edge. It can add a kind of realism to it. Later on, after creating the specular map, this area will get that specular highlight, and that is the reason we have to go through this stage. Now taking a different alpha and dragging over here to get the print of the wood. You can see now it is looking much more realistic. Once again, I am continuing with my edge polishing. See how I am distorting the edge with this edge polish. It also has to be very random. Through the time, the corners of the wooden plank will get some distortion at the edges like this. This is looking fine. Now hold Ctrl Shift and click outside to get the entire object, and now selecting the next, again Ctrl Shift and click to isolate it. Going to standard brush, and let's start with this alpha. So I'm just dragging it. I have planned to do all the sides first, so by selecting the alpha once, I'll do all the sides of all the wooden planks like this. Alright, now I'm taking the slash brush and I will give the crack marks to all the objects, and simultaneously I will also smooth. You can see I am drawing the wooden pattern everywhere. It has to be random, but at the same time it has to be harmonious. Now once again concentrating on one plank and creating the marks. Smoothing it. Switching back to our standard brush, and I'm changing the alpha. Alright, this side also I'm going to do the same and smoothing it. Okay, alright, now selecting the H polish brush and once again converting the edges into smaller planes throughout the surface. Alright, you can see how I have deformed the edges and it is looking very random now. Now going to the next wooden plank. I'm going to do the same thing over here, so I'll fast forward the process a little bit. Once again I'm repeating the steps. The major cracks we already have done in Maya. Over here we are doing the first level of detailing with these crack marks, bigger crack marks, and then by using alpha we are creating the smaller crack marks. So you can understand we are creating the detailing in 3 steps. First, the bigger detailing, second, the mid level of detailing, and at last the smaller level of detailing. So the bigger level of detailing we already have done in Maya, and mid level of detailing and smaller level of detailing we are doing in ZBrush. Alright. In this case also, coming to all the edges and converting into smaller planes, this process is very important. This can add a very different kind of detailing to our object. Once again, for this object also I am doing the same thing. This is a process of repetition. You need patience and you have to invest time for this. Then you can get a very good result. Once you know the tools of ZBrush, it is very easy to use. You just need to practice it. Then only you can get the real fun of sculpting. This is an inorganic model, but then also I'm sculpting it like an organic object. What I am trying to convey is, you have to go to each and every smaller object and need to sculpt it. You may think in our final rendering that object will not be visible, but somehow that object will create an impact of detailing in your final output. So we should not ignore any of the objects. We should go to each and every smaller object also, and we should sculpt on it. Okay, now I have started sculpting the second subtool, and over here also I have to do the same thing. I have to follow the same steps, and I am doing that only. You can see I have given a lots of time in these areas and didn't ignore any of these smaller objects. This is not a monotonous process to me, but this is a real fun. I am enjoying doing this sculpting. I am going back and forth to the different brushes. By the hotkeys, you also can create your own hotkeys for different brushes. So I'll tell you how to do that. You hold Ctrl and Alt in your keyboard and click on a particular brush you are liking to use, and then give the hotkey. Suppose I am creating the hotkey for standard brush. So I am holding Ctrl Alt and clicking on standard brush. So now just give the hotkey Alt S. So you have created the hotkey for standard brush. So like this, I have created hotkeys for the standard brush, for clay tube, for edge polish, for slash brush, because I know I am going to use those brushes again and again. So it is really helping me in terms of this sculpting, and I don't have to go to the brush again and again. I need to click the brushes. It is also saving a lots of time for me. Now coming to the tile subtool. Here you have to remember one thing. If you want to sculpt a different subtool, you have to go to the subtool and need to select that particular subtool, otherwise that subtool will not be activated in that area. So first you need to select that to activate that subtool, and then you can sculpt on it. So I have done the same thing for the tiles. Tile is a smooth surface, so like the wood, I am not creating a pattern over here, but I am working with the edges like the wood. So you can see I am making the edges irregular, and it is creating the sense of realism. And then I will create some cracks over here, then it will look much more natural. And drawing the cracks very randomly, then also it should look harmonious. That is called design. You are creating chaos, but that is also having the harmony. And those designs will be definitely interesting. You can see I am also breaking the flatness of the surface. And this time I am using Trim Dynamics brush. Trim Dynamics can create beautiful planes. For organic modeling also we can use this Trim Dynamics brush. This is very much useful. Now coming to the individual tiles, and started sculpting the edges once again. And I'm using H polish for this also. Now breaking the flatness of the surface. I have to do the same for all the tiles. Now creating the crack mark. So like this, I'm going to work with each and every individual tiles. Here is a time lapse, and I have done with all the tiles. So now going to the walls and the chimney. And first of all, let's select the chimney and let's start sculpting. I'm smoothing the entire surface a little bit because I think the edges are visible here and there. So now I'm starting with the edges and I'm converting the edges to smaller planes. This is the most interesting part of this sculpting. I am enjoying this process of converting everything into planes. In organic modeling also, I do the same. By doing this, your model can look very stylized. Now, let's create some cracks. Okay, the chimney is almost done. Now let's concentrate on the walls. So I'm giving some crack marks on the walls. Taking different alphas and projecting it. See, I'm not using the same alpha everywhere, so you have to change the alpha so that it should look different. Each crack should look different. Now I am planning to insert some stone pattern on the walls. So before doing anything, let's mask the area we want to insert our stones. So I am holding Ctrl and painting over it to mask the area. Now holding Ctrl, click outside just to invert mask, and then I am selecting my alphas and just dragging over here. You can see the stone pattern. And I will just smooth it a little bit. Doing the same thing in this side also this side, and in front. Alright, now once again I'll just smooth it. You can randomly download these alphas from Google, or you can get these alphas from Pixologic website also. Over here also I am using Morph brush to get back my old shape. Some of the areas I don't want the distortion, like the corners especially. So I just use Morph brush. At the corner I should not be worried because the wooden planks will come in this area. That area will be hidden, but then also I am keeping the corners clean. Alright, this is looking fine now. Now holding Ctrl, clicking outside for invert selection, and going to the deformation and increasing the inflet a little bit. I can see gaps at the corners, but that's not a problem. I can rectify this in Maya itself. Now I am clicking on all the other subtools, and I think my sculpting is done. And yes, my sculpting is done for the house. Now we can jump into Substance Painter for texturing. So my house sculpting is done. In the next session I am going to show you how to prepare your scene for the Substance Painter texturing. Then we'll go to Substance Painter, we'll come back to Maya with all the extracted textures, and we'll see how to render those textures in Maya itself by using Arnold. All the links are given below. If you want to jump to any of those sessions, just go through the links in the description. Hope you enjoyed the session, and don't forget to subscribe for the future videos. Thank you very much for watching.